Hey, on this episode of Tailboard Talk, I'm sitting down with Curt. We're drinking coffee and going over some listener questions. So hang out, see what we think about annual fitness tests, PFTs, canines in the fire service, and some other stuff. Hope you dig it. Let's get into it. Here comes the intro. Skip forward 30 seconds if you want to get right to the episode. This is the Tailboard Talk podcast, the best health, wellness, and lifestyle resource for the fire service. We're using stories, lessons, and tips from the front lines to give a realistic view of what the job can do to us and how we can make it out alive. I'm Chris Morella, a firefighter since 03, medic since 05, full-time since 08, and promoted to lieutenant in 20. I'm also a personal trainer and strength coach, and I'm here to give you the best information and host the best discussions to make us capable and durable, both on the job and away from it. So grab a heater, steal some fancy creamer from first shift, and let's go chat.
Right now?
Wagner?
Yeah.
No, he's at FRI, Fire Rescue International, which is a Chiefs conference.
Did I ever tell you about the class Dan and I went to in Indiana?
Parts of it.
It's just a funny part is that there were 2 days of it. One day was for line personnel and like PFTs and stuff, and then the next day was for Chiefs. And so the day with the line personnel, it was like in this like crappy college auditorium type seating with like whatever, like the Natural Harvest crunchy granola bars in the back that you could go get.
Yeah.
And then we went to the Chiefs one the next day. It was like in a banquet hall with centerpieces. And,
Really?
yeah, buffets and everything. And I'm like, geez, Louise.
Yeah, man. The decision makers get all the perks.
Yep.
I didn't know where you're going with that. Do you remember when, I think it was at FDIC like 2 years ago, I sent you the pictures of the different attendances at the seminars or something like that? And they had their big push that year, and it still might be, I didn't pay that much attention to it, was like women in the fire service, cadet retention, diversity, all the stuff that everybody says they're really concerned about, you know? And then they also had like the typical ones like throwing ladders to buildings or something like that. And so they take pictures of all the speakers, and the ladder ones was like full because it's some chief talking about New York or something like that. And then the diversity one has like 4 people in it.
Crickets,
and I'm like,
yeah.
what are we doing? You know, like
Aquafit. Remember that one? It performed better.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that was what? Yeah, that was an Exos thing.
Yeah, Mark Verstegen.
That was tough. That was a tough one. Yeah, because all of his other stuff was that well attended?
No, that was terribly attended.
And it was awkward.
I think the lecture portion was pretty poorly attended, and then like the practical was even.
Yeah.
I think he was angry in the practical, if I remember correctly. Like, you could tell he was clearly frustrated that nobody came to his practical portion.
To a banquet room to do Aquafit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was a tough sell because that was their big merger with Speedo, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then didn't it go away? Didn't it go away like 6 months later? They're like,
Yeah,
never
I
mind.
don't think it ever turned into anything.
Oh, that was such a bummer, dude. Because yeah, he was like the keynote the year before, and they were a major contributor to that thing.
Yeah,
God.
and then Ben Bruno came out with his dumbbells that he uses in the pool, and it looks awesome
His
and fun.
aquaweights. Ben Bruno. I'm
Just splashing in a pool all afternoon.
I'm back on the Ben Bruno thing, man.
Yep.
Still can't stand the way he works out sometimes. Just the pure visuals of him working out. I do the same movements.
Yeah.
You know, the tons of rear foot elevated split squats and heavy stuff, and it's great. And I agree with them that you basically do the same 15 exercises till you die. And it's just something about watching him work out I don't like. But then he gets on his ask me anything tirades, and I'm like, I like it. I like everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. He went off on the Bosu ball the other day, right? Did you see that one?
Yeah, there's one hanging
in the
out of
garbage
someone's
can.
garbage
He said
can.
it's like the perfect spot for it. And obviously he took a lot of flack on it because he did a follow-up post, being like, it was just meant to be a joke, but
Yeah.
still where I think it should be.
It's also, he always...
And then David Weck came out with this change thing.
shaking his coins in his pocket, shaking his Tic Tacs. He also goes back to it frequently, and it's always confusing. That space he trains in is like 12 by 15.
Yeah, his garage.
Yeah, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's tiny, but the angle is just set up, and you can't see the outside wall, so it looks... And the ceiling's high. Looks like there's a balcony there almost. yeah, it's like 12 by 15. It's like a shed.
Yeah.
And 1.5 7-foot tall people at a time. He's got them in there.
Yeah.
And doing heavy stuff. So that's cool. So I've been sitting on, literally now, these presents for you for a little bit.
Okay.
I'm excited to get your reaction on them. I saw them and I was like, that is atrocious. Okay.
Sweet.
I don't even know where the person I got them from had a tub of them. So they sell them, I think, at Costco in the quantities of hundreds. Okay.
Whoa. Have you tried these?
No, not a chance. I will never ever try those.
These have got to be delicious.
I don't think so.
You don't think they're good?
There's no way.
They're going to be delicious.
That's the grossest thing I've ever seen.
They're Skittles, flavored, branded, like Crystal Light mixes.
Oh, gross. Just saying it is the grossest thing. It reminds me of
Can't
like
wait.
the dip and stick stuff, where you lick the candy stick and then dip it in and it just tastes sour or whatever.
I bet you that this orange and this strawberry will be delicious with vanilla protein.
Oh, God.
Can't wait.
That's the grossest thing I ever saw. I saw that, I was like,
Find out where the rest of these are.
I think they blew up the factory. I hope. Yeah, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, if I could send these to Raph right now, I would. Between you two, like sitting there just snorting Skittles dust.
True fact is that's my dad text when Sid goes trick-or-treating is, except for the purple bag, wild berry Skittles can rot in hell. But the other, original and tropical, inject that into my veins.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah.
Well, we can't have them because Katie's aware of what some red dyes are, yellow dyes, and all the rest of the dyes. So she does not appreciate them. But
I remember the last time that I ate till I was physically sick was at a Chicago Wolves game, and I got one of their like bags of Skittles, but it's like the family pack. It's not like a regular pack.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't stop, and then I just kept eating them. It's so good.
How old were you?
Like 35.
2 weeks
like
ago.
2 weeks ago.
Like I'm still full.
I'm working on the bag. The rest of the bag's in there.
Yeah. Like my butt still hurts because of it. I still got
Rainbow.
a green stained toilet bowl in there. Gross, dude. Well, good. I'm glad you ever.
I don't learn my lesson with Skittles. That's for sure.
Apparently, there's no reason to.
No.
Now you're gonna have a hold. What do you think Taylor's gonna say when she sees those?
She won't see them.
Because they'll be gone, or
Oh yeah, they'll be gone.
by 3 hours from now.
2 of these will be gone before she gets home from work today.
God, dude. Oh, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. Oh,
She's
God.
so inundated with new work, she doesn't have time to pay attention to my things right now. So
She's like, what are you drinking?
Yeah.
Are you drinking Kool-Aid?
Right.
Like, no, it's Skittles.
Who did I see? Didn't you send me the video of Tom Segura the other day drinking Kool-Aid?
Bert Kreischer was drinking Kool-Aid. He had like a gallon.
Yeah, I was
he had
on
like a gallon of Kool-Aid.
That's right. Yeah.
It was one of their like viral clips.
Yeah.
And yeah, we watched it. Not live, but when it came out,
Yeah.
And then shortly after, someone clipped it up.
Yeah.
And he had a gallon of Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And it was a shock. Like he discovered, he's like, "Are you drinking Kool-Aid?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Bullshit." And then he pours out. He's like, "Oh my God, you're drinking a gallon of Kool-Aid." And then Tom Segura
Can't blame him.
chokes for 20 minutes
Yeah.
trying to laugh. Oh God. Let's see. All right. I sent you topics. Where are they? Where's the old one I sent you? 'Cause there's one from a while ago that I think is a really good one because, God, dude, what do I do with these things? Because archive?
This is different from the Hello from Australia.
Yeah, it was before that.
Oh, okay.
It was something like how important cardio is versus lifting heavy weights or something like that for firefighters. Like I think it was why. So I'll just make it up and remember it. Essentially, it was why cardio is far more beneficial than lifting super heavy for firefighters. And I think that's an important thing to address because I think that brings definitions of what each thing are into it. Because it's just like saying you should do cardio. Some people consider that running. Some people consider like treadmill work. Some people consider like walking with a weighted vest on for a much shorter duration. Some people consider it a CrossFit workout that's longer than 7 minutes is your cardio, because it's moderate intensity, moderate weights and high intensity.
Yeah.
So the only thing I can imagine with this person is that they're looking at each extreme, the marathon runner and the power lifter.
Yeah.
And they're probably saying, like, the marathon runner is far more suited for the job as a firefighter compared to the power lifter.
Right.
And I
think he might be confusing. They might be misinterpreting cardio and work capacity.
It's probably a good one too.
You know?
Yeah. So I think it's important to define more or less what we're talking about. And unfortunately, I'm on the opposite end of his opinion. If I'm gonna be in the middle between the two extremes, I'm always gonna err more on the side of powerlifter than marathon runner. And I think about it like my truck. Can tow 10,000 pounds, right? And the camper weighs 4,000 pounds. So if there's a hill, or if we have a lot of stuff or whatever, I have that much extra towing capacity. I can pop into gear by pushing down on the gas pedal, and we're good. When that hill comes up, or I'm carrying a lot of stuff, I don't need better fuel economy in those moments, you know? And that's a lot like the fireground. When there comes a task to be done, oftentimes you need more power. So having a greater strength reserve or power reserve or capacity will benefit you, rather than having the ability to run for 50 miles.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the way I kind of liken it to people, is like, if you need more power, there's very little substitute for it. If you need more endurance, you can slow down, you know, or get somebody else to do the job. But yeah, there's really no substitute for that extra towing capacity when you need it. So I'm always going to err on the side of strength over cardio. That doesn't mean that they have to be two, like, completely polar opposite things.
Right.
And I think that goes in a lot of the way that we program and work out.
That's the thing. Like, if you're lifting weights for an hour, you're getting cardio in there. You're getting work capacity build up in there. As long as you're not doing the here's 3 reps of a squat and then sit for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then another 3 reps of a squat. But if you're combining some pushes and pulls and squats and mobility stuff and grouping it together and moving for an hour, you can't help but improve some work capacity, which I think people just blanket as saying cardio.
Yeah.
You know? I was just having this talk with somebody returning from work yesterday of, like, I was just kind of going over the way we program and the way to do things, and she was saying that her cardio is really suffering right now. And I was like, if you lift weights in kind of this manner, I'm like, your cardio can't help but improve, you know?
Yeah.
But I think most people just go to, like, is my heart rate elevated? Well, that's cardio, and it's like, kinda, but
Sure.
not really, you know?
Yeah, and that's so cardio is really just, you know, there's zones to cardio, and they're not difficult to define. They're hard for me to remember, but I always think about that 140 to 160 range being the working range for the fireground or incidents that you're going to be in no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if you're inactive at the fireground, just arriving on scene, getting out of the engine or ambulance, getting dressed, and then going into the front yard, your heart rate's going to be far higher than you expect it to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if you take moderate weights or heavy weights and manipulate the rest periods, just because you're not running on a treadmill or on a bike, if you're above 120 anywhere closer to 140 for 15, 20, 30 minutes at a time, then you have a little break and then you do that again. It's going to look different, it's going to feel different, and it might be more difficult than just kind of shutting your brain off or watching Netflix and going for a ride or a walk or a run, but it's going to give you the same effects. Your heart and lungs don't know if you're riding a bike versus
Correct.
lifting a dumbbell or barbell or on an Airdyne. It has no idea. It just knows that it needs to supply more stuff to the system to make it work well. So however you can manipulate whatever you're using to impose those demands, that's going to be cardio. So that was one. I think that was a good one. But yeah, I think it's important to say also that each end of those extremes is detrimental. The person that can lift 1,000 pounds one time but has no capacity to pull up their pants without getting out of breath is bad. And the person who, you know, we've had guys that have gotten really, really into yoga and endurance sports. And they're extremely mobile and they have great body control. And pretty decent core stability.
Right.
But then you need them to lift anybody over 110 pounds off the ground, and everything goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're severely compromised right away off the bat. You can just see that they're not used to actually moving stuff around.
Right.
So each end of that spectrum has its benefits and also detriments.
Yeah, and I think we talked about before the force time curve, and that's a pretty easy thing to just Google, and you can see if you move that force time curve away from the intersection of the axis, like that's ultimately what you're trying to do. And you can't do that by polarizing your training to one end or the other.
Nothing wrong with doing stuff you like, but
No.
you have to. This is where a coach comes in handy, because they can say, I know you really like that. I know you really like Orange Theory. I know you really like
Bench press
and your cardio kickboxing class. You love that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to be well-rounded, these are the gaps in your
Yeah.
training. So if you want to be a successful firefighter for 30 years, here's some stuff you got to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's a couple other questions. Some are really good, or topics, I should say. Some are not fire department related or fitness related necessarily, but I'm going to start with this one because we've been burned on this one before.
Mm-hmm.
Topics firefighters like to hear about from outside presenters in regards to health and wellness. Is it ringing a bell when I said we've been burned on that one before?
I'm sure when you tell me it'll ring a bell.
The guy that submitted a PowerPoint about eating vegetables and getting enough exercise and drinking enough water, and then he came and presented and he wanted to implant TRT rice grains in everybody's hip.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
So, which, listen,
That's right.
There's a function for all that stuff, but
Who got that guy?
I actually don't remember, but I know they submitted it through battalion chiefs.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, let's do this. And then the chief signed off on it. They send it to you just to be like, hey, does this look like something
That's
we care
right.
about? And you're like, yeah, it looks like just basic.
Yeah, they sent a PowerPoint over that was basic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he came in and tried to sell hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
That's right.
And he was also, I remember getting one on that guy because he was selling that, hey, the normal level is up to 500, whatever, and I don't know the levels. If you're in this zone, if you're above that but below this, it's detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're above that, above 1100, you're superhuman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at 1250. And then later on, he was kind of stuttering and lost his place. And he's like, God, sorry guys, long 3 days. I'm just getting, this is the 12th time I presented this. I'm getting a little eerie on it. I'm like, you better up it to 1500 then, pal.
Yeah.
Because
I remember being fuming about that thing.
oh, well, it was a complete bait and switch.
Yeah.
And I remember you kind of warning me like, hey, half the stuff that's in this was not in the PowerPoint he gave me, so don't endorse this when you go to it. I was like, oh crap. Now, with that being said, if he would have presented his original thing, even if he has something to sell, obviously he does, right?
Yeah.
But if he comes and say, hey, we're a chiropractor office, but we also like people to eat well and pay attention to their exercise, can we give a talk about that and then maybe offer a promo at the end?
Yeah.
I'm down.
Yep.
So what kind of things would you invite in to talk?
I would invite a like-minded physical therapist in to just talk about maybe common injuries. And what I think it does is it gives you an opportunity maybe to set something up long-term, because most physical therapy places will do free injury screens. And so maybe that's something that you can turn into every year. Every member who wants to can get a voluntary orthopedic screen from an actual therapist and not from, just a physician who doesn't care,
Right.
And then with the therapist, obviously they can always, possibly have clients off of it. And if not, they're not out anything, it's a screen they'd give out for free anyways.
Yeah.
But, then I think it also takes some burden off of maybe some PFTs who maybe aren't qualified enough to deal with injuries. And so now you have some outside help that's come in that can maybe assist somebody who's got nagging elbow or knee pain or something like that.
Right.
And the therapist can benefit on maybe scheduling a few sessions, and, it takes some of the burden off of the department at that point. So I think that'd be a good relationship to foster, because then it can turn into a long-term benefit, over time.
Mm-hmm.
The other things, it's just like nutrition sucks, because it's like, you get someone who comes in and says the right stuff, and you get some dork that's like keto right now, and it's like, well, yeah, but you're not going to be keto in 3 months, so stop. But like, it's just too emotional of a topic for uneducated firemen to receive the right way without having their opinion on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say if we have 136 people attending a talk with a nutritionist, I would say that 5 of them maybe would be open enough to
Right.
listen, and then 2 would like follow up.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I'm not even thinking of specific people. I'm just thinking people who would take that and be like, oh, there is some stuff to this. Maybe this isn't as hard as I thought, and I'm willing to invest some money in this, because the rest of them will be like, yeah, they'll play both sides of it. They'll be like, yeah, I really need someone to tell me to eat more vegetables. Be like, well, are you? It's like, well, no, but
Right.
do I need somebody? I know I should be, but I'm not going to. So why would I pay more to hear that again? I'm like, well, obviously you've got it all figured out.
So I thought that's an interesting way that question took, though, because I took it more as like, you're going to a symposium. What would you like to see presenters at a symposium talk about more? And for me,
you look at it.
I don't know if that's the way that question went. I always thought that those symposiums missed how do you implement a wellness program with very limited resources. Because everyone comes into those things and it's like, hey, I work for Austin, Texas. Here's our center built for wellness for firefighters, or hey, I'm from Orange County and here's all the stuff we do. But it's like, come to me from town of 50,000 people with 3 stations.
Yeah.
And tell me you had no budget and this is the program. This is how you start a program. I think that would be hugely beneficial to the fire service if someone could just come up with ideas there to present.
Was that one of the major fall downs of the first PFT program? That was one of the big
there was so much testing equipment that you had to get, and it was like, here's the surveys that you had to give to physicians to categorize guys red, yellow, and green, and it was there was just way too much to implement for a department that wasn't ready to implement a full program.
Well, yeah, I mean, what do you have on the average department? I consider us a larger department in the area.
Yeah.
So I would say that average is half our size, so maybe up to 70, 80 people.
Mm-hmm.
You might have 2 or 3 guys who are enthusiastic enough to want to bring their influence in, and it's going to be on a voluntary or part-time basis at best.
Right.
And maybe they have a certification, maybe they're just really like working out, and so to ask that person to do anything clinical is just absurd. You know? Yeah, I think that's more the realistic view. So that's a major hurdle. It's even difficult to take 1 or 2 things back because then you're stuck with like the, hey, we can put you through this screen or we can do this exercise. And they're like, all right, then what? And you're like,
And we know that. We came back and you and I are very familiar with the functional movement screen, and we know a lot of the stuff that you can tell from it. And we did it with our department, and I think at the time we did about 75 people, and I think we identified probably 20% or less of the department was at an acceptable. I think our average score was like 11.8 out of 21.
Yeah.
And 14 is what like you hope the average person walking off the street with very minimal movement background can accomplish. So we were bad. And we identified a lot of people who were in line for a catastrophic injury, and a lot of those people did end up having it.
Yeah.
But we did all that testing and we provided all the data. And then it was kind of like, thanks.
Yeah. Now we know.
Right.
Which is the double-edged sword of like, now we know, so we have a little bit of problem on our hands.
Right.
Like, do we know this and not take care of it, or do we just not? Maybe next time we just don't know it.
Well, I think at the time that we did it, we did the best we could to say like, here's what we have. This is what we know, and here's what we're telling you. And the chief at the time was like, sorry.
He considered that the entire thing.
Yeah.
He thought that the program, the objective, and everything was accomplished by completing that.
Right.
Which I know we communicated to him several times it was not, but he considered that the end of that project. And so, thanks for the information. Good job. Good job scheduling yourselves and doing it. And now, see ya. And that was a bummer. What question were we answering?
That was the.
Is that the first one?
That was the what do you want presenters to.
All right.
That was the last one, I think.
Let's run through a non-fitness one. I think this will be quick.
The thoughts on search and rescue canines?
Yeah.
I love dogs, obviously.
Yeah.
I think,
I'm in.
yeah. I think the realistic thing is by the time you get probably 6 to 9 people trained on how to do that with a dog, you've probably invested way too much money for the department, and you should just use one of the resources that's probably already available.
Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of these dogs are like police dogs, where they have their person,
Right.
and that's their dog.
But we can't function that way.
No.
Right?
No, we've tried. And so, if anybody has questions about this, we actually had a guy. If you're questioning the feasibility of this, it wasn't for search and rescue. It was for emotional support, and the project ended up not working out for a couple of reasons. But because he was willing to put in the work for it, he was able to get the dog, I think, not donated, but provided for that specific purpose and trained nearly for free. He's able to get a lifetime supply of food for the dog set up with a major distributor. He's able to get free veterinary care for the dog set up through a local place because he explained what he was going to be doing. And so essentially it was going to be a zero cost to the department. And it didn't work for a couple reasons, but those are less important now. But the work he had to do was he was going to use it for teaching. That's what he's going to use it for. Teaching kids fire safety and like a pub ed dog, basically.
Yeah.
So the work he had to do was, first of all, finding a dog and a trainer that could supply that. Figure out what courses you needed to be certified in that or appropriate for that. Then he went around to every single principal and superintendent in like 5 districts surrounding our community to get it approved by each one of them formally. And then it fell apart when it got to the department of city level, more or less. But it was a incredible amount of work. So it's very possible. But I kind of tell that story to let you know that if you're not willing to do that much work and basically have it come down to a rubber stamp yes or no by the time you present it, then I wouldn't attempt it because you're going to get frustrated. And at that level of project, like you're saying, that level of investment, it needs to be presented as like, here's 100% completed project, just requires a yes or no. Because the last thing you want is to show up there with an 80% complete project and have the opinions of the chief and the city have room for that in your plan, because then it's going to turn into something you don't want or you didn't plan on, and then you're stuck because they're going to give you a condition of like, I think it's a great idea if you put these couple parts in there, and you're like, I don't want those parts.
Right.
So now do I say no to the whole thing? So I think that's good general advice for any kind of program. Yes, it's got to be essentially a yes or no by the time it gets to the top of the food chain, but it's possible. All these things are possible. You just got to be willing to put in the work on the front end of it. But I love them. Short answer is yes. Let's do this one real quick. This is a fitness one. I'm redeveloping our rookie packet, maybe essential training for rookies. I think this is more of this is a fitness dude's asking this, so we can angle this towards fitness for this one. Any specific tasks coming to mind? Because some do for me, I think that's less important than the overall goal.
I don't know if I have a specific thing. I just think that that's the time to really impart on new hires that this needs to be part of your employment. Is you need to start enjoying work. Well, not enjoy it, but you need to commit to working out and training.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything. It's hard to run out specific things, I think, other than creating like a mindset that this is important. This is an expectation that you're going to start some habits now, so that they continue through the rest of your career, and you're not going to be, turn into a bag of milk now and have that be an issue.
So I kind of took this one as, after seeing our handful of new guys that I've had to deal with issues, it's hard to say specifics, like you said, but when it comes to essential training for rookies, I think there needs to be, first of all, lots and lots of hands-on training.
Yeah.
And then frequently, not all the time, not every shift day, but 2 to 3 times per month maybe, there needs to be some form of physical training that pushes them to a decision point if they're going to quit or continue. And not in a dangerous way or anything like that, but and that you can tell them, like, we're gonna make this intentionally difficult to push you to your physical limit to see what your brain does. And that's okay if they know that. It doesn't have to be a surprise or a shocker or anything like that. But the biggest problems we've had with rookies are when we get them to in the maze, on the roof simulator, in a real incident, and they start kind of falling apart physically, they just get crushed mentally. And so I think it's essential that in your first year, you get to a point of that level of exertion and mental stress numerous times. But not only just to see if this person can quote unquote hack it, but just to let them know that they can. So when they're off probation, I mean, so the chief just talked to us 2 weeks ago and told us we have, for 12,000 calls we run a year, essentially, we have 60 working fires, like confirmed working several lines off fires, right?
Yeah.
So if you divide that up per shifts and per people, your chance of being first in and pulling a line first into a fire is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
So it's feasible that you could go through your entire first few years, a long time, without being a first in line pull to fire. If you have that knowledge that I know it's going to be difficult, and I know what my capacity is and what I can operate at, maybe you won't be so freaked out.
Yeah.
5 years from now when it actually happens, And so I think it's extremely valuable, and that's going to be kind of whatever your abilities and your resources are at the department. But we've used consumption courses, we've used chained events at the drill tower, like go from the roof simulator. All right, get off that. Let's go up to the second floor and do a search. Okay, let's get off that. Now we got to advance a 2.5 across the parking lot. Just not low acuity stuff, but less threatening stuff that's going to take a lot of effort, and see what they can do and see when they start to fall down physically and mentally, and then kind of go from there. But I would consider that, as a broad term, as essential.
Yeah.
I think a lot of places maybe shy away from that because they don't want to, not that they don't want to weed out people, but it can be very uncomfortable to administer that type of training.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of people that just don't know how. So they're just hammer and nail philosophy, where they're just going to beat these kids in the mush and not actually learn anything from it. But that would be my idea.
That's the thing too, is like, I think you have to be willing to subject that person to that stress, but then you have to be willing to also support them after you've done that and been like, okay, you got your ass whooped on this. Now let's break this down and help you so that this can be better the next time. And I'm not sure that that's always the
no.
You just like to do the finger point, like, yeah, so-and-so could barely cut a hole.
Yeah.
And then that's it. It's like, well, yeah, but you're his officer, so maybe you should be doing a little more.
Yeah, we had that happen. That's happened in the past in our department where somebody was asked for extra help on something. So they went out with an officer or their crew or something like that, and basically what came back from that happening was people just confirmed that they were crappy at that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, that person knows they're crappy at it, and
Right.
they ask for extra help, so train them. Don't just beat them and confirm that they suck at it. Like, he's aware.
Yeah.
So that's a difficult part, but that comes with, that's a lot of our coaching stuff, and that's just a lot of natural leadership ability, but also I think a heavy dose of empathy, where you're like, well, I've been there, and obviously I'm still employed, so this kid's salvageable,
Right.
or at least deserves some coaching, not just being beat to a pulp and left in the corner.
I enjoy doing a lot of the hands-on stuff. This is just a personal thing. This has nothing to do, obviously. I hate when I'm doing stuff with someone where I've made time to be like, yeah, we're just going to go out and we're going to get a lot of reps of this thing over and over.
Yeah.
And then, little varmint comes out and it's like, hey, this is what, and it's like, just go away. Like, like nobody asked you to come out here and stand with your hands in your pockets and evaluate. Like,
oh yeah,
go away.
Well, so I was out recently with somebody who's going through the acting lieutenant time, and one of the hardest things for regular line personnel to do is, even if they've gone through instructor 1, is develop a drill. And so we went out to a parking deck with the aerial and with our ground ladders, and I was like, all right, you're going to run this drill with us 5. So give us the objective, structure it, and then lead us through it, And it's difficult to say, like, because he's got a sport background, but not necessarily a coaching background, I don't think. And so it was difficult to say, like, all right, here's a great way to structure it. Start with the base fundamental skill, and then start layering things on top of it. Let them know we're going through 5 reps of this. 5 evolutions is what we're doing. And each time it's going to get more difficult and faster till we're at, like, a working pace, It takes a lot of experience to know how to do that stuff. So it just turns into, like, you know what? So throw the ladder and then climb it, and then come back down, and that'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're lacking. You don't push to the educational or the physical point of that
Right.
for anything. So I don't know.
I always hate Mr. Obscure Fact too. I had a new guy. And this was a while ago, but we were using the airbags, and I'm like, well, let's go lift the dumpster.
Yeah.
And then someone comes down and is like, what's the capacity of this bag? And it's in the middle of it's like, just stop.
Yeah.
Go
Stop
away.
derailing everything. Here's a fun fact for you on that. Could not be more unrelated.
20,000. 40,000.
Nope. Did you know that? Well, now I got to think of it. I was listening to a podcast, Malcolm Gladwell podcast. Did you know that running your water faucet in your kitchen sink for 2 minutes, just running it for 2 minutes, uses more energy than running your dishwasher on a cycle?
I run our dishwasher every night because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was an episode he did, revisionist history, and he did about, specifically, he was trying to refute Cascade, because that's what they say, like, just scrape it and put it in there,
Mm-hmm.
He's like, there's no way. And so they went into the science of it and the development of the packet and all that.
Yeah.
And they said, as a total, the gross total, it uses more energy to run your faucet for 2 minutes than do one cycle of dishwasher. It's a good fact.
Do you know that we have guys that didn't know how to use liquid dishwasher soap?
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
We have it at our station right now.
Really?
And guys were like, how do you use this? And then we had guys that were complaining about it because it wasn't in a pod and it was in that. I'm like,
It's harder to chew on.
Yeah.
It's way harder to chew. Oh, God. All right, so last one. I like this one from Joe Galley. Obviously. It's great. One free policy, non-punitive, which takes a lot of the fun out of it. What's your one free policy? This is a tough one, guy. I did some thinking on it, but I tried not to get too deep into it.
I would say His Excellency, the Union President, gets double the Kelly days.
Double Kelly days? So it shall be done.
One policy.
Yeah.
I saw Joe ask this, and there were obviously a few things that ran through my mind.
Yeah.
I think one for me that's just kind of hot right now is I would like to see some sort of support to people coming back from an injury, and that there's something outlined as to time with PFTs that they get to get them on the right track instead of whatever your department for our department they get a week long, it's not even a crash course, it's like a refamiliarization, non-punitive.
Yeah.
But if it's identified in there that you have some deficiencies, then you get some stuff, assigned to you.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that there's 5 to 8 hours of work over a few months maybe, or 6 weeks, something like that, that those people coming back from an injury get to work with, a trainer, whether it's someone you have qualified at your department or, your department pays for a reputable trainer to work with that person to continue them on, because we know the number one cause of injury is, previous injury.
Yeah.
And if we can stymie that, because most of those people are going to come back, and if they haven't worked out, they're probably not starting. And if they did, they're probably going back to what they did before. And so maybe it's just time for them to get some more education,
Yeah. That's a big one. That's a big, that's an intricate policy.
Personally, I'd have a policy that says that you can't make a policy
Yes.
if you're just going to punish one person. Like, you don't make a blanket policy if one person does something wrong.
Okay.
You just address it with that person.
That's what memos are for, pal.
Yeah.
Man, that was a problem back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think mine would be, I would put something in writing that you were allowed to go out of service 1 hour per day for physical fitness.
Yeah.
And we've tried that before and it hasn't worked. Call volumes got in the way, or our individual battalion chiefs didn't buy into it, so they didn't approve it on an as-needed basis. But our physical fitness a day, that would be my policy.
I like it. The problem is that we'd get in our own way of something like that because, someone would be like, well, I don't want to work out at 2 o'clock, but that's when my battalion chief says that I can. And it's like, well, I want to go out of service at 9 o'clock, you know? I think we've talked about it before. I think Plainfield or someone does something where it's like, till 9 o'clock, there's no stuff. You can work out, or that's your time to work out, but everyone has to, type thing. Yeah, something. I mean, obviously that hits home with us, but something where that's the priority for the crew for that hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I shy away from doing any kind of like annual fitness standard because, I mean, I absolutely want one. I just don't know. I haven't revised it in my head enough from a long time ago to know what that is now.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's top of the list once put some thought towards it. But in the meantime, I'm fine with just affording the time on shift to the people who want it.
Yeah.
Because I think that holds more benefit than people cramming for 2 months and hoping they pass something.
Yeah, I don't think we could ever incentivize anything enough here for that to do what we want it to do.
Yeah.
If it's non-punitive,
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want anything punitive, but you're not going to get the person who's not in shape, who's far from passing the standard, to cram for 2 months. But that's the person you're trying to get to cram for 2 months,
Right.
And so you're just going to get those people that are going to be like, it's not worth $800 or
even that, yeah, even a day off or whatever,
off.
And
then you get the people who don't need it, who could just walk into it and pass it and be, I got a day off,
It's still good, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, though. That's a tough one. Because we have a lot of policies. And I'd say very few superfluous policies. Most of them are there for a reason.
Yeah.
There's definitely people who think that we're far too heavy on policies, but I've seen the other side of that too.
Yeah.
Where departments have very few, and it's all judgment calls if you're going to get in trouble or not, and that's no way to it's no way to run it because there's zero protection from the next administration coming in and just wiping you guys out.
Right.
All right, well, good one, man. That was a long one.
Yeah.
About 40 minutes. You can chase your big coffee with some Skittles dust.
I'm sure I'll have that on the ride down to pick up Sid.
So gross. So gross. All right, if you guys dig what we're talking about, head to Fourth Shift Fitness website and do Buy Me a Coffee money. We're drinking some now, provided by Angie Bishop. Again,
thanks, Angie.
All-star giver to the podcast. Appreciate that. And we'll be back with more.
Did we
you
answer
guys.
Angie's questions?
She hasn't. She didn't. No, she decided to benefit us caffeine and monetarily instead of
Perfect.
stress our brains out. She knows. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.